After CNN President Jeff Zucker announced yesterday he'll step down after failing to disclose a consensual relationship with a colleague, anchor Alisyn Camerota openly lamented Zucker's resignation on air, saying she was in shock over the, quote, incredible loss. Let's watch.
I do just want to say something personal for a moment, if I may.
Sure.
And that is, I mean, I feel it deeply personally, but also I think I speak for all of us and our colleagues. This is an incredible loss. It's an incredible loss. Jeff is a remarkable person and an incredible leader. He has this uncanny ability to make, I think, every one of us feel special and valuable in our own way, even though he is managing an international news organization of thousands of people. I just know that he had this unique ability to make us feel special. And I don't think that that comes around all the time. And I think, again, it's an incredible loss. And I just think it's so regrettable how it happened. If what you're reporting is true, these are two consenting adults who are both executives. That they can't have a private relationship feels wrong.
Shortly after that clip of Camerota went viral, her former Fox colleague Megyn Kelly criticized the CNN anchor's defense of Zucker, tweeting, quote, "Tell it to the women who got passed over for a promotion so the boss's lover could have the spot. Are there any? Have you checked? Then stop defending this."
This isn't Camerota's first time venturing into the Me Too fray. In 2017, she said former boss Roger Ailes of sexually harassing her when she was an anchor at Fox News, accusing Ailes of bullying her after she rejected his advancements. Katie Halper, host of The Katie Halper Show and co-host of the Useful Idiots podcast, joins us now to discuss. Katie, thanks for joining the show. Welcome back. I mean, what are you making of all of this? I mean, first of all, just Alisyn's, I guess, thinking, oh, you know, what is the big deal?
Right.
I think Megyn Kelly made a great point. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I just want to give Alisyn a shout out. She had to reintroduce, speaking of men behaving problematically, potentially, although the story, I think, doesn't really fall under that, but it certainly is adjacent to that. But she, of course, had to welcome back. It was very awkward when she welcomed back Jeffrey Toobin after his Zoom-in Toobin fiasco. It was really awkward watching her have him come back on for a segment and ask him about why he did the things that he had done. But that's another issue, and somewhat related, though, because it's an issue of behavior that's apparently tolerated by CNN, and that is unintentionally masturbating on camera during a work meeting, as opposed to having a consensual relationship. Megyn Kelly raises an interesting point about kind of fairness and whether or not other people were passed over, whether or not basically someone got special treatment because of their romantic relationship with Zucker. But it definitely, there's something weird to me about punishing someone over a consensual relationship, and he's being punished for not revealing it, when this same network welcomed back Toobin and also was so slow to do anything remotely ethical about Cuomo. I mean, this is a network that should have been handling the way that they dealt with Cuomo in a different way much earlier on. They shouldn't have had Chris Cuomo. We know that Chris Cuomo did really inappropriate things. We've covered it here on the show before. Major conflict of interest there. So some people are saying, but people are saying that there's suspicion that this has to do with a vendetta from the Cuomos, because Zucker, although again he didn't want to do this, but he ultimately was forced to fire Chris Cuomo in a move of like damage control. If not, you get the sense it wasn't really something he wanted to do, which is actually that to me is one of the most damning things about Zucker, is that he tolerated obvious conflicts of interest for so long.
And one way that we can kind of know almost for certain that there's more to this is what Kim mentioned earlier. Katie Couric, in her book, talks about this relationship. And so if it were the undisclosed relationship with a subordinate, that was the reason for the resignation yesterday, then that resignation would have come out when Katie Couric's book came out.
Right.
And it didn't.
I mean,
so therefore,
right.
It wasn't that.
Right. It may be like they don't want to look like hypocrites. I honestly don't buy this, because the level of conflict of interest or unethical behavior is so pales in comparison to what was demonstrated by the Cuomos that I don't really buy the idea that they had to do this in order to not look like hypocrites with Cuomo. I don't buy the idea that now they're looking more closely at stuff. I mean, that's a theoretically plausible explanation, that they have to kind of clean up house because they went after Cuomo. But to me, again, having someone who was at the network covering his own brother and also engaging in helping smear his brother's accusers, that is so much larger of a unethical behavior that I don't really see this as comparable. So I wonder if there is more stuff out there, like Megyn Kelly is suggesting. Maybe there's a lot of examples of people being passed over. That's kind of a little bit hard to prove, but maybe it did happen. Maybe we can see people who are just as qualified who didn't get promoted, while his romantic partner did get promoted.
Yeah, right. That's the sort of baseline problem with having a situation where a supervisor is in a relationship with an employee, because maybe they put that person's interests ahead of the company, or maybe like bad decisions are made to cover it up, that kind of stuff. I don't know that it might not be the biggest deal in the world, but what I'm really interested in is how much of the coverage of the Cuomos was affected by this very confusing and entangling set of conflicts, where you have this person who is involved with the head of CNN who first worked for him, right, or worked with him at another cable network, and then was in the Cuomo administration, and then is at CNN with Zucker, with Chris Cuomo, right, in the midst of this all this news relating to Andrew Cuomo, and then also Chris Cuomo. It's a situation where you can easily imagine a lot of specific bad calls being made because everyone is too involved in this for various reasons, and that is what I expect will be the trajectory of this conversation, is finding more about that kind of stuff.
Right. So as you note, Alisyn Gollust, who is Zucker's partner, she served as communications director for Andrew Cuomo in between her stints at CNN, and that was around 2012, I believe. But what's interesting about that is, and that is a kind of another example of how I think kind of disgustingly, it's kind of like a revolving door right, that we see in so many industries, and here we see it in media and politics. But what's interesting is that Gollust is not being disciplined, and she's not losing her job. Zucker is. So while I think that is a potential conflict of interest, or just speaks to the generally kind of incestuous relationships we see among political and media elites, it doesn't seem like that's the thing that is being punished, because she is remaining there.
Right, and that seems fair, right? The subordinate shouldn't be the responsibility of the subordinate to report that. Like that puts you in an incredibly awkward situation.
Well, you mean to report the relationship with Zucker, or to report the thing? Well, she wouldn't have to report the thing with Cuomo. That's just general knowledge, obviously, on her resume.
The relationship with Zucker.
Right.
Well, yeah, right. And I don't. Right. She shouldn't be fired for that. I don't even care if he's fired for that. Frankly, the issue is
which
that
he's not.
Should she be disciplined for? Right. Did she, advise him? In both the professional capacity and her personal relationship with him, that hey, it'd be a great idea to put Chris Cuomo and Andrew Cuomo on air together to shoot the breeze and
never talk about
nursing home. Right. Yeah. And this nursing home thing is not a big deal. I know Andrew, he wouldn't have done this, and we're like, let's not. That's the thing I'm interested in, if that was going on.
But again, to be fair, that's what I was saying when she's not being punished. Like that's not. Yeah. If that were an issue, then she would be facing something. I'm not saying it's, I think, again, it's pathetic, because it just speaks to how normalized and typical it is for people to have these conflicts of interest. But that's not at play here, obviously. This is what is at play is the relationship between Zucker and Gollust.
Well, and apparently, according to reports, she ended up getting this job at CNN, and to your point, or to Megyn Kelly's point of how many people were passed over, she apparently got this job at CNN And when she got the job, people were wondering, why did she get the job? Because the job wasn't really needed. They were saying that they already had somebody doing the job. And so it was really unclear to people why she was being brought on, and she didn't really have something to do. So it was just very odd to people. But, really,
that's pretty common, right? In big company, media companies, all like, what does this person even do? Right.
Right. What's the job? But, to your point, Katie, of this just showcasing kind of this incestuous behavior. And also, and I think that is really, a lot of people kind of wonder, why do we care about this scandal so much? But because it is two consenting adults. And so what is the big deal? But at the same time, it is a big deal because it is showing this revolving door between journalism and politics that probably shouldn't be happening. Also, it then goes into the Me Too issue, somewhat, but more of this favoritism for your lovers and who's getting passed over for jobs because they're not your lover. So I guess it does play into Me Too. But also another point that you're bringing up, the Cuomo vendetta. So what's interesting about this is, even though this was an open secret, the reason why it came out, and I think the reason why he's now why Zucker has to go, is because this came out in the actual investigation now. So it's one thing for everybody to kind of know about it on the DL, and it's kind of hush hush, or it's open secret and everybody kind of knows. It's another thing when it goes on record. And if this goes on record in a human resources lawsuit between a former employee and the company, and then it comes out and it's on paper, how can human resources ignore that if they have a policy? They can't legally.
Right. Yes. I will bring in the fact that I'm just reading at Business Insider, and they have an article that was just published an hour ago. CNN insiders suspect Cuomo flagged Jeff Zucker's workplace relationship as revenge for firing him, report says. I don't know how much stock to put into this, but I guess a senior staffer told the Daily Beast, notice Zucker mentioned how this came from the Cuomo investigation. People think this is clearly Cuomo dragging down Zucker on his way out.
I guess it kind of depends on,
right.
It would depend on how that came out in the case, in the investigation. So did it come out because Cuomo was like, and by the way, now that we're on record, now during this deposition, let me go ahead and tell you something. Or did it come out in another line of questioning, and it wasn't really, and maybe it was Cuomo's legal team and it had nothing to do with, it might not be Cuomo himself trying to bring Zucker down. It could be just this came out during the depositions or the investigation. But either way, once it's on paper, once it's legally in the books, how are you as a company going to ignore that? You can't. I don't know if CNN had any other option.
Well, to be fair, again, all they did with what was Andrew Cuomo's big mea culpa? I'm using that sarcastically. He was like, sorry, I should have done it differently, but family becomes family before work, which is like, okay, great, then just quit your job and be a family man and be a professional brother. But my point is that CNN clearly has ways to finesse it if they don't want to fire the person. Because this was what they said earlier on before they fired Chris Cuomo, right? This is what Chris Cuomo said earlier on. So you could see a scenario in which Zucker said, I made the mistake, I should have revealed this relationship, but I didn't. Luckily it's between two consenting adults and no other ethical boundaries. I'm just saying it doesn't, I understand what you're saying, and there probably is some pressure once things are on the record and on the books, as you put it. But I still think that CNN, had they wanted to, could have worked it out and acknowledged that something should have happened that didn't happen, but that wasn't an ethical scandal.
They'd have to go up against the lawyers, and that's always, once the company lawyers get involved.
Right. Well, Jake Tapper said an outside, again, he's not, he is there, but he did say an outside observer might say, well, it looks like Chris Cuomo succeeded. He threatened Jeff. Jeff said, we don't negotiate with terrorists, and Chris blew the place up. How do we get past that perception that this is the bad guy winning? Tapper said.
Interesting. Well, I guess we'll find out.
We'll keep following it. We'll see if more information
we'll keep looking for the bodies, right?
Yeah, I know. Not to be anti-Italian American. I don't want to offend you, Robbie. I know you're
Thank you. It's anti-Italian discrimination. I'm watching this.
Yeah. But remember, Andrew Cuomo and Chris Cuomo and Andrew Cuomo work pretty close. Andrew Cuomo, of course, told Ron Kim, I will destroy you.
Yeah. So if
there you go. Cuomo apple doesn't fall far from the tree, then.
Well, we got to leave it there. Thank you. Before you get into any more racism against Italians.
Yeah, or I'm canceled. I mean, whatever. I'm Jewish, so that I think it's above the,
Yeah. Now we're going to play the Oppression Olympics over here.
Oppression Olympics. Yes.
The privilege, what is it? The privilege diagram? What is the
intersection of,
Oh, the privilege shuffle. There's the privilege shuffle, the privilege
there's
walk.
a lot of,
Where do I
Some
fall
of my
as
best
Asian?
friends are Italian. Look, at the end of the, you bumped me out of the, you go on top. Yeah.
I don't think so.
You can make Jewish jokes. I can't make Asian jokes. That's how it works. I'm just kidding.
I don't think so. I don't think it goes
We
that way.
should not make any jokes.
You don't want to meet the Wookiee.
Never laugh again.
Robbie
this
converted to
conversation has
Italianism just for the jokes.
This has devolved, guys. Katie, we got to go. Right. This has devolved into a
Yes, I know you're right. I got us all canceled.
Bye, Katie.
No
Thank you for
joking about
joining
anyone.
us.
I love everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Tomorrow on Rising, we have another great show for you. The no anti-Italian hate crimes.
We would never lie about that.
Founder of the Daily Poster, David Sirota, will join us to discuss California Governor Gavin Newsom's failure to keep a key campaign promise.
And Pew Research Center's Baxter Oliphant will break down the first year of presidential approval ratings for Joe Biden and what support in his second year looks like so far.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any of our moments. Many of our moments. We'll see you guys tomorrow.